Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another episode of Open for Discussion. I'm your boy, Seymour Reese Ball, and we are in the building. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button that's going to be coming down here across the bottom. And today, we got a special guest. We got a young man, and I am truly excited about speaking with him. He is a dynamic father, an amazing husband. He is an author. He is a community leader. He's out here changing lives and impacting the world. But before we get to it, we're gonna kick this intro and then we're gonna get started. Let's go. Well. It's the man himself. I'm introducing to some and presenting to others. My man Darren. What's
So man,
good, bro?
yo man, I'm so glad that I get to that I get to redeem myself. You know what I'm saying? I feel so good, man. I prayed, I studied, and I was like, man, how can I make sure that I just keep my light on the whole time? You know what I'm saying? That's what I want to do.
So we won't be sitting in the dark. For y'all who don't know what he's talking about, we did a podcast not too long ago, and he was sitting outside, and the sunlight decided to say, it's time for me to go to the night side of it. And he still was delivering gems and dropping gems like a drunken pirate in that podcast, even though we couldn't see him. It was still dope, and he still put out some really good information. So if y'all want to check that out, go ahead and check that out on our channel. It's called The State of the Church, or The Church in Living Color, where we just talking about some issues with the church. Let me give you a backstory on how I met this awesome man right here. So it was during COVID, and we were part of this Facebook group on Facebook. Of course, that's where it's at. And it was called Black Fathers. And so I think he made a post, I made a post, and some kind of way we just started talking, we started connecting, we made a couple of things and just developed a relationship through Facebook. And this is the power of Facebook, y'all. Like, I had no idea who he was, and he had no idea who I was if it wasn't for Facebook making the connection. And Facebook brought us together, and that's the power of social media when it's used correctly. And then we
Right.
just he liked some of my posts, I liked some of his posts, and we started liking each other's posts and stuff like that. And then we landed here with this amazing opportunity to get him in front of you all and share his story and his walk. So that's how we came to hang out. Man, how you doing?
It most definitely was interesting, because you don't find relationships like that on Facebook for any social media at all. At least as far as grown men, you don't find relationships like that. Like normally, it's thirst traps on there. That's how people meet. But you know what I'm saying, ours was a little different, man. I'm grateful that we met, man. It's been amazing how we've grown and how I've been able to kind of share stuff with you. So I most definitely appreciate that.
Oh man, God is amazing. When He's trying to make a connection, can't nothing stop that connection that is being made. I am grateful for the relationship too. It's always cool to be able to meet new people and develop relationships and add you part of my village as I become part of your village. So it is an awesome thing. So right now, where you reside at?
So I am in Greenville, South Carolina, and by way, I would say, of Northern Virginia. And I'm loving it down here. I got mixed feelings about it, but you know what I'm saying, that's kind of where I'm at right now, Greenville, South Carolina. So my wife loved it, you know what I'm saying. But so if she loved it, I guess I love it too.
Oh, absolutely. You stand regardless. If you did love it,
right? I love it now.
you will make a way, because the thing is the saying, I kind of No, let me put it like this. Let me phrase this. The saying is what? A happy wife, a happy life. Is
That's
that's the
right.
saying.
Yeah,
I
that's
kind of
right.
say a happy spouse, a happy house, right? Because
That's right.
it's two of us in here. So,
I
I
know.
can't be coming home being miserable and she all happy.
I know what that look like. Men lead
Right.
love too. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. So
Yeah,
happy spouse, happy house.
that's
So
right.
you was born and raised in Virginia?
No, I actually was born and raised in Chester, Pennsylvania. It's probably about 30 miles outside of Philly.
Okay.
So fly Eagles fly. And so I'm a diehard any team Philly. You know, whether it's Phillies, Sixers, Eagles. You know, I'm a diehard Eagles fan. And so last year was a little disheartening, but you know, what I'm saying we coming back strong this year. But yes, I'm Philly all sports, and sometimes I go home. I still have family up there, and we go back occasionally. But there's no place like home. But you know, we moved to Virginia. We kind of moved all over the place actually. My wife and I. You know, we moved in. We were living near the Charlotte area,
Uh-huh.
and we was like, hey, we was like, man, we want to move to some, you know, we want to move somewhere different. And so we were living in Concord or in North Carolina for about, I would say about 10, 11 years. And we was like, let's go explore. Let's just go some places and see what's out there. And so we had the opportunity to go to DC. And we absolutely loved it there, man. It's so many innovators, so many people moving and shaking, trying to establish businesses and really kind of going hard for it. And that kind of created, I think, that's kind of where the creation and the drive to kind of be a business owner and an entrepreneur, I think, kind of lived at, or that's kind
Mhm.
of where it's most fun. Because my wife and I, we actually owned a daycare in Concord as well. We had about 3 different buildings, and you know, we were doing a lot of different things. But what I noticed and recognized is we didn't really have any mentors at the time
Uh-huh.
to kind of say, hey, man, you should do this, use your money to do this. We were kind of the mentors. And so we were, you know, giving out information just based off of what we had learned. But it wasn't necessarily from, it was just through experience. So I think that we learned a lot through that as well. And you know, I think that we've learned that the most important thing is most definitely having that different level of things. Whether you're a mentor, you're a mentee, it just kind of helps with the circle of life as far as you just mentoring somebody and then being, you know, given that wisdom as well.
For sure. It's accountability on both ends.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You got somebody aspiring to be where you are as you aspire to be where somebody else is. That is so I did not know that y'all own the daycare. Uh so you Philly. Now, let me say this about Philly. I've been to
Okay. Better
Philly.
be nice now.
I would tell you what. This was before I got saved. So uh
Uh-oh.
Philly was one of the best places that I went and had fun at. We went up there. My homeboy had was an Air Force base up there, and we ended up going hanging out at the Air Force base and going to Philly Live, the club that was in Philly. Man, I had a blast. I love Philly. I got an uncle who lives in Philly now who he's like, hey man, you need to come out and hang out with me. So I think this might be the year I might pull up
Yeah,
and
man.
go out there and hang out in Philly. So you went born and raised Philly. You have any siblings? Are you the youngest? Are you the oldest? Are you the middle child?
So I'm actually the oldest. I'm the oldest son. I'm the oldest grandchild. And so my siblings, I think I got about, was it 6 of them, 5 of them? I think it's 5 of them, 5 of them. And my grandma, she has quite a bit of grandkids. I couldn't tell you the number, but I just know that she got a lot of grandkids. And then I'm her oldest grandchild as well. And so they both, my mom and my grandma claim that I'm both their babies. And so sometimes they argue about that, who gives me the most love, but I enjoy it all the way around.
All right, that's good. So in that number, is it boy girls, girls boys? Are you the only boy?
So yeah, so it's me, Michael Williams. It's 4 boys and uh, 2 girls. Am I forgetting somebody? 2 girls. Yes, 2 girls. So
So
4
six
boys, 2
six of
girls.
y'all. So
Yeah.
you grew up with 6 people in the crib.
Well, so to be honest, so what happened was is I'm the oldest from my younger sister is 6 years. So by the time let's see, by the time William and my 2 youngest brothers were being born, I had already moved out.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it was
Okay.
already, it was like four of us. So our constant, like four of us that was in the house for the most part while I was there. Yep.
How was the experience as the older brother? Were you you were paving the way, giving the examples? Did you were you a good big brother? Would your siblings say you were a good big brother?
Nah, my sister actually continues to tell me now. She was like, "I hated you." That's what she said. She's like, "I hated you. I couldn't stand you or whatever. You were so mean, all this other kind of stuff." And I was like, "Man, why? I'm sorry. What I'm saying, I apologize or whatever. I just didn't know I was like that, but what I'm saying, I just didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know no better. What I'm saying. I mean, we were always together. We were always together. I was always, kind of watching them and different things like that. So I was always not really monitoring them, but controlling them. Like, hey, this is what you're going to
Controlling
do
them,
because I'm the bigger brother, all that kind of stuff. And then if I did something, you better not tell, or I give you
right?
$5, or I do that, kind of bribe them. So that's essentially what that life consisted of, for sure.
So I'm the youngest of three, and I have an older sister who's about 6 years, 7 years older, and then I had a middle sister who was 6 years older. So I get it. I get the
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna break something, or I'm gonna eat up all the candy. And y'all better not tell on me. Uh,
Right.
the bullying, all that stuff had us shell shocked. We couldn't
Yeah.
do
Right.
nothing. Then you come
Yeah.
home, she be looking at you like,
Yeah. Right in front of Mom Dukes. That's exactly how it went.
like,
Yep.
like who broke that? Us.
Yeah, you better not tell, right?
No, so you grew up the oldest of pretty much six before, and do y'all have a close relationship right now?
Yes. Our siblings, we're like close. Like, we have a group text together. Both of my brother and my sister, two of my younger ones, they both just recently had babies, like 2 months behind each other. So being able to experience that with them, and both of them, it was their both of their first, So I was able to kind of go and spend some time with them individually. I haven't actually seen my brother's baby in person yet, or actually my sister's either, but what I'm saying, I'm able to kind of go through those life lessons with them and kind of just have life with them. But we have an amazing time, especially, well, I guess through text message. Like, you ever have that thread where you send like different memes and stuff to your siblings and stuff like that? We constantly do that, like, every day. We constantly say good morning to each other, good night, just sharing those different things. I tell them, like, when I'm doing different things, my sister say when she's doing different things. So we're all kind of just growing up together and celebrating each other through life.
Man, that's dope.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing when you can have that bond with your siblings as you grow, and no hard feelings for you just being the big brother doing what big brothers do, which is big brother stuff.
Yeah.
So that
Right.
that that is like my sisters, my middle sister just passed on the week before Thanksgiving,
I'm sorry to
and
hear about that, man.
there's a whole story behind that, and I'll share that with you offline. But because this is about you, this ain't really about me talking. Uh,
Okay.
but but they were always constantly fighting, even
Mm.
in their 50s. Like
Oh,
my
wow.
oldest sister was 50. She 57, 50. She's 7 years, so she'll be 58 this year, and my middle sister was a year behind. And I used to always ask them, like, y'all in y'all 50s, why y'all still fighting?
Mm.
Like, when does the fighting stop?
Yeah.
When does they loved each other, but they always was fighting. And I just, after a certain period, as I got bigger than them, I just really stopped arguing with them, because I'm like, y'all ain't y'all ain't worth my time now, because I'm way bigger than y'all. So whatever,
Right.
you know. So you grow. You're the oldest. Um, what was your process like transitioning into high school? What was like when you were going into high school? What was your thing? Were you an athlete? Were you a musician? Were you?
So
What was your thing?
interesting story is I wanted to play the saxophone and the drums, but I just never had an opportunity to. And I tried in 8th grade. This before that, I actually tried out for the basketball team, and I made the basketball team. However, my teacher strongly recommended that I not play basketball because it would interfere with my grades, and my mom agreed. And I was so mad about that joint, so I wasn't able to play basketball. And then my mom, I'll say, "Hey, mom, I'm gonna try out for football." And she was like, "Well, all right, I'll see how your grades is." But I'm like, "Mom, I gotta try out." You know, I said before school starts, so you won't see my grades. And she was like, "Well, guess you look." So she was, what's this? She was like, "Well, guess you ain't playing." And then come to years later, she would say, "Well, I just never wanted to. You were my baby or whatever, so I never wanted you to get hurt and all the other kind of stuff." So she never allowed me to play, football. And then I was like, I tried out track, and track was just boring to me. Like it was just boring to me. So I just didn't really like it. I mean, I tried it for like a year or so, but I just didn't like it, and so I just quit that. So as far as sports, instruments, I really didn't do too much of anything. I think my experience with high school was a little different than others. Because I would consider myself, I got bullied during high school. Like I'm very talkative and funny and do all that kind of stuff now, but I was a totally different person in high school. You know what I'm saying? Like I really didn't have any friends. You know what I'm saying? I had like 1 or 2 friends I can probably, count on my 2 fingers or whatever. And they kind of carried me through high school essentially. But I wasn't really, I'm not saying I really needed to be popular, but I just didn't have any friends. I got, picked on in high school, all the other kind of stuff. So I was excited to get to graduate for sure.
So when you when you look back at that, you look back at your experience in high school and the bullying that you experienced. How did that play out in other areas of your life, that as far as like confidence and self-esteem and things like that? How did that affect you as you navigated and moved through and matriculated through high school
So great question.
and into your adult or college adult life?
Great question. So I think the most important thing is that I can easily see somebody that's not always seen by others. I think that's the most important trait that I learned from that, and one that I can really say that I do is that when I can recognize someone that isn't being seen or that isn't being heard, and not just be the voice for them, but recognize them and show them that I see them. I think that's the biggest thing, is that I can recognize that. I can recognize the standoffish, or I don't want to be seen because of such and such, or because of my whatever it is. I recognize that, and I think that's the biggest trait that I've gained from that experience in high school for sure.
That I think that is very important. I work with young people now and being able to see that piece right there, because that student will be silent through everything.
Hmm.
And so to be able to acknowledge them and be able to say, hey, go over there and create conversation. And so when somebody did that to you, how did that make you feel on the inside? Because I know when you do it to somebody else, the reaction is probably like, wow, he acknowledged who I am and he sees me.
So are you talking about, so now I recognize it. It doesn't, what I recognize is, so I'm coming from perspective.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a Christian or whatever, right? So I believe that God has called me on this earth for something, and the purpose and plan that He has for my life. So part of that is that I encourage others, and then I allow God to encourage me. And so that's how I recognize it. Like when I attempted to go out there and say, "Hey, God, I need to get some of this that I'm giving out," He just repeated back to me and told me, "Hey, I will supply all your needs, and I will give you what you're putting out." And so I've recognized through that, and through the experience, and through maturity, I should say, is that, hey, I'll do what God has called me to do, with the expectation that, hey, God was going to fill me back up and not really expect it from others. Now my
Yeah.
wife, now my wife or whatever, she'll give it to me, and I think that's more than enough. Like my wife, she'll give me enough tools that I can go conquer the world.
Oh, for
You know
sure.
what I'm saying? So, but
Yeah.
other than that, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I really expect it from and get it from God for sure.
That's a great quality to have, a great trait. That's a dependency. It puts you in a place to where you're not seeking outside affirmation or validation, which allows you to be authentically you and be comfortable in your own skin. So I definitely can rock with that. Now, we did you transition out of high school into college? Did you go to the military? What was your what was life after you transitioned out of high school?
So I graduated from high school, and I had enough sense to know, and I think my mom kind of gave me this confidence and this wherewithal, I should say. Does people say wherewithal at all? I know I
Where was
heard that word.
not in the conversations that I be in, but
The wherewithal. I don't know where I got that. Maybe my grandma told me about that. The wherewithal. So my mom gave me the strength and the know-how to be like, hey, you know, you graduated now. You got to do your thing. You know, you can't just sit around and, you know, be sorry for yourself, or, you know, just sit around and party and all the other kind of stuff. So what happened was, is I graduated. My mom said, as long as you are going to college, you can stay here. And I was like, all right, fine. So my mom, I was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, and Greensboro had like 5 clubs. They got like 2, 3 colleges there. Like it's jumping, like, you know what I'm saying. At least back in my day or whatever. I don't know if it's jumping like that now, but it got Greensboro's A&T University,
uh-huh.
and so I had applied to UNC. I mean to A&T University. However, I was a week removed from being considered in-state tuition or being in-state. So they were going to charge me out of state. And I was like, well, I can't afford out of state. And so I ended up going to a community college where my best friend, he got accepted to A&T. So we went to our respective colleges and everything. And we was like, all right, we partying, you know what I'm saying? We graduated, we grown, we partying. So we would party from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every single Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And boy, I'm telling you, like we knew the dress codes at each club, what each dress code needed for each club. We knew how long we was going to be there. We knew when we were showing up, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of forgot about school. I kind of forgot I was a college student. And and then I just
That's
became. I was
normal,
like, man, I'm too tired to wake up and go to the 8 o'clock class.
right?
I'll just get it next week. And so that's the weeks turned into months, and then months turned into end of the semester. And before I do it, I had all Fs. And so my mom was like, I was like, Mom, I don't think this college thing is for me. And she was like, well, I guess you plan on moving out then, huh? And and so I was like, all right, let me get my life together. And so what ended up happening is a couple of my friends, well, one of my friends ended up joining in the Navy. And I was like, man, that seemed pretty cool. I'll join the Navy. And so I went down there and signed the papers. And I was like, man, I don't know. I was a mama's boy at the time. I really love my mom. I mean, well, I still do. But then I was like, man, I really want to be here with my mom. I can't leave her, you know, because I was like the man of the house too. You know, at my mom's house too. I was the man of the house, you know, and I didn't want to leave her, you know, and be out of seas and all that kind of stuff. Plus, I was kind of scared to be out there in water. You know us. You know, we
You're
just
right.
learned how to
Don't
swim.
swim like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do the Navy. And so I took my little papers back. I got out. I was like, I don't want to join the Navy no more. However, I was like, I want to join the military. So I went into the Army recruiter, joined the Army National Guard. And then that's when I got into the military. So I signed up in like September 1999, and signed up to be in the military. And so what happened was I went to basic training, went to AIT, which is your specialized school. And then
Mhm.
I came back, and like in between basic training and AIT, I went and signed some papers to my apartment. And so I was paying rent or whatever until I actually got back from my schooling. And then I was able to, you know, move into my apartment after that.
That's what's up. So you're a veteran.
I am
Hoorah.
a veteran, yes.
Hooah. Hooah.
Oh, yeah.
Hooah. Yeah.
One
Hooah.
of them say who. I can't remember who it is, but one of them do. I just know it ain't the army.
Navy. I'm
Okay,
so
it's the
I'm I'm
Navy.
I'm a
Okay.
Navy vet, and so I was kind of questioning that whole being out to sea thing on the ship, all kind of, craziness. Man,
Yeah.
I got stuff that I can say about that. In that time, um, so you transit to the military. You probably started working. You probably started kind of piecing things together. What was uh what was something that you experienced that started to shape and mold you into moving in the direction that you started moving?
Um. So I know that everything happens for a reason, and so what happened was I met this lieutenant colonel. What you've been in the military, so lieutenant colonel is pretty
Top
high
of
up
the
the food
top.
chain.
Yeah.
And so being in the National Guard or whatever, I was only like a PFC, like an E3, which is totally different than a lieutenant colonel. So he really kind of took me under his wing and was like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna look out for you or whatever. And so what happened is I think I was in High Point. I was working at Penske Automotive. They were the mechanic shop that was always connected to all the Kmart's, and I was working there, and I was making decent money. I would say decent money at the time for me or whatever, but it really wasn't in retrospect, but it was good. I was maintaining, and he gave me this job. He was like, hey, I got this job up in Raleigh, which was I think it was about an hour and a half from where you're at. It's full time. You'll get paid regular Army benefits. You'll get, all that kind of stuff. He paid me everything per diem. He paid me full time. He put me up in the place that, or not he, but the job itself put me up in a
Uh-huh.
place or whatever where I didn't have to pay for. And I think that's when my mind started to change. Like that's when my perspective started to change because I really started making, for me and myself, was kind of life-changing money that can really make a difference. And then when you're in the military, you don't have to really pay for anything. Just like I said, I didn't have to pay for my lodging. I didn't have to pay for my food. You know what I'm saying? So I started to kind of get that regular active duty type of feeling or whatever. And that really just kind of changed my perspective because it allowed me to do some different things. And that's when I think that's really when I started to quote unquote feel myself. Like
Uh-huh.
I was like, man, I'm really doing something big. I'm really doing something different. I'm really making a change for myself. And that's when my perspective changed. And that's when I started to really, really build confidence.
Well, that's pretty cool, man. Like we kind of had some of the same similar stories, are like parallel. So, um, I met my mentor. He was a command master chief
Okay.
in the army. So he was top of the top of enlisted. So he was an E9.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he was the top of the top of enlisted, and he kind of pulled me in under his wing. The thing with um that I had a father, like my dad and I was really cool, but when he passed, I was really kind of floating. So my mentor stepped in and gave me the man stuff. Like my dad gave me the teenage stuff up until 18, 19, and instilled some things in me. It was it was my mentor who kind of refined a lot of that stuff and added some more pieces. So to be able to have another man to step into your life, to be able to kind of lead and guide you and put you in position, man, that's always great. And then it makes you it makes you committed to doing that for somebody else,
Right.
right? Always reaching back, always trying to, put people in position and things like that. Now, in that walk, at what point did that? And I know it ain't been all like roses and
Of
you
course
know,
it has.
like Chariots of Fire music playing in the background, everything moving all slow motion.
All
So,
right.
in your journey, you had somebody to step in to help you kind of navigate some of these pieces. How important do you think that is to have somebody that is able to help you navigate through some of the pieces?
I think it's important. I think the main thing about that is that sometimes if you don't know, you just don't know. And I think part of like understanding some of those beginning processes, especially like in the military and kind of earning money and then what to do with it, all the other kind of stuff. I think it's important to kind of say, hey, man, like who can you? because there's a lot of people out here. There's a lot of gurus. There's a lot of people that know the answers, but it's so hard to trust in people, because the first one, if you trying to rely on somebody that's considered like a guru or the top of their SME or subject matter expert and stuff like that, they won't give you all like the ins and outs, and they won't give you the emotional stuff that's part of life. You know what I'm saying? They'll just give you they'll give you one side of it sometimes and stuff like that. And I think a mentor just adds so much more value to that, because they it's walking through life with you. It's not walking through the money with you. It's not working through the, how you going to earn this next dollar, but it's like, okay, well, how am I dealing with these emotions and different things like that? And I think that's why it's important to have a mentor for sure.
So the relationship the side of it is very important as you're navigating and walking through. I mean, I know it was for me. I had to trust that I had to trust first. I had to see his fruit and see his consistency, and then I, not knowing that I needed to see him do that, I still was watching,
Right.
and it was one of those things that I was like, okay. I don't know what it is, but I want it.
Right. That's
So,
right.
yeah. So, and the relationship became, off of the relationship, the stuff that he said made it easier for me to digest, as opposed to not having a relationship. I'm in somebody's master class and trying to pick up this information. It was different because there's no relationship there. And even though the information is being put out and it has substance and is valuable, I'm not going to retain it as much as if I had a personal relationship with that person.
Right. That's right. You explained it way better than I did, Pastor.
Oh, Pastor. That's funny. Uh, so in this thing, what trials and tribulations did you face that made you almost want to quit?
So I've been married now going on, it'll be 22 years, I believe, this year. And when I first got married, because I wasn't raised by my father or with a father figure, that I was navigating a lot of those different emotions, all at once. And I think some of the hardest, most difficult times is trying to find out what that means in regards to being a man, being a father, being a husband at one time. And I think that's part of like the toughest times for me, because even though like when I first got married, I was still trying to figure out what that all meant. As I was learning how to nurture and take care of my wife, I still was trying to learn how to be a man. And okay, do we talk to people? Do we cry? Do we do these things? Do we do that? Like, there's a whole process I'm trying to find out. And then at the time I met my wife, I was at the beginning, the genesis or the beginning of being a Christian. So up until then, I didn't know, anything. I didn't want to say I didn't know anything about God, but I was still in a learning process. So I think all of that kind of built me up to who I am now. That, again, just like I said earlier, that God is kind of just teaching me and really, really showing me to have a dependency on Him, because of the things that I've learned, the things that He brought me through, that now I can kind of show other people. But yeah, that's most definitely was one of the things.
So in this with this question though, I'm thinking like what was a breaking point? This is life. This is not marriage. This is not. And I'm talking about on that thread of life. I know there was probably a point where you were just ready to tap out, like something. Life shifted. Life be lifing, and so when life started lifing, and you were in that critical place, what was it that came up, and then how did you navigate through it, especially if you was a babe in Christ, not really knowing and understanding how God works and what He uses. So what was something that almost made you be like, you know what, I am done with all of this.
So interestingly enough, so I want to give a little disclaimer too. is as I have a little short-term memory. So when you ask a question, I got in my mind how I want to answer it. And then when I answer it, it's like, okay, now I do something totally different. So now I got to make sure that I'm staying on key with the questions or whatever. But yeah, so going back to that, I did have an interesting story about, again, just at that same particular time, but a different story, because I remember vividly about the time when I was at the altar and I said, look, God, if it's going to be like this, just take me now. Like, I don't want, I'm not built for this. You know what I'm saying? And it was during a time where I just didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know. I was trying to figure it out, but I didn't know what I was doing. But there were, just because I didn't know what I wasn't doing, doesn't mean that life just stopped. And so I think that was part of it, is that their expectations were still there, but I wasn't able to meet it, whether it was from my wife or from my kids or from people that kind of relied on me. That it made it difficult because I didn't have the answers and I didn't know how to get the answers, especially with being the babe in Christ. I didn't know how to listen, how to hear from God and all that kind of stuff. And I think it just kept on piling on, and kind of my self-esteem was down. Like it was like a lot of different things that was really just like compounding on my shoulders, that I was like, all right, God, I can't handle this. And it was because I don't want to say I bit off more than I could chew, but I just didn't know what I was doing. And I think that between, like I said, just caring for my wife and kind of doing those different things, but then on top of that, like redefining who I was, because I was married now, and now I was separated from the military. So I was no longer that military man anymore. So now kind of redefining who I was, but then not knowing who I was. And so that it all became that big old thing where it's like, I'm supposed to be this new person, this new creature, this new thing created in Christ, but I just don't know what that looks like. But the problems still keep on coming. The issues still keep on coming. And I don't know how to control it. And I'm like, I just can't deal with this. I almost became like I don't want to say a stranger in my own home, but I became a stranger to myself, because I didn't even know what my next step was. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, man, what do I do? And it's like, man, I can't. And that's when I was at the altar and I was like, man, look, God, if this is what life is going to be like, you know what I'm saying? Hey, just take me now. That was my exact words. Hey, just take me now. Let me go peacefully in a hospital bed. You know what I'm saying? And just take this thing away from me, because it wasn't nothing I can do. But then, you know, in God's fashion, he came back at that same time and said, you know, I won't put more on you than you can bear. But then he said, I built you for this. And I'm not done with you yet. As clear as you and I are talking, that's how he said it.
Oh, man. So evidently he's still not done, because we're having this conversation. So
well, you know what I'm saying? Look, my beard look a lot tighter. You know what I'm saying? Since then, maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
So in that moment, how real did God become to you in that moment right there? How real did God become to you?
He became so real that I decided to lean on him when I had nothing left. When I had nothing left that I could physically, emotionally give to anybody, he became someone, and he became someone that I can lean on and put my full trust in. And that's how real he became. And it became real because of how audibly I heard him. Again, like I said, like I know that people hear from him differently. But I heard him as if he was as if you and I were talking right now. And it was so clear that I knew it was no one else. And he became real from that point on. Not saying that I didn't have any struggles. So I did have other things that came up, but you know what I'm saying? Where at that point in time, I just knew that he wasn't done yet, and he became real then.
That's it's those road to Damascus experiences that each of us have, that kind of put God in this perspective of like he's real, like he's real. And I was interviewing my friend Dr. Shadaria Allison, and she said something that rings with me. She said, I know that he was real because of what I used to do and how I used to live.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, he real for real, for real, for real. And I
Yeah.
was like, for real, because I understand how I used to live. I understand what I used to do and how I used to do it. And for him to convert that and love me enough through that to be able to be standing, sitting, talking to anybody, he is real for real.
Yeah. For
Like
real. For real.
for
Yeah.
real, for real. Like without question, he is amazing. So are you in finance right now? Are you do finance?
No. So technically, I'm in as they call. I work for the airport now. I'm into real estate.
Okay.
I do the podcast thing. So I'm kind of like a connoisseur, but you know what I'm saying. But I just kind of do a little bit of thing. If I would tell somebody, if somebody would ask, "Hey, what do you do?" I'm an investor.
Okay. I
Yep.
dig it. I dig
Mm-hmm.
it. I dig it. So like now that you're moving in this vein and you starting to see these buds grow off of this tree that God had planted. You've been married for 22 years.
Yeah. Hold on. It's 2004 this year. It'll be 21 this year. Yep.
22 years. Okay. When did you get married?
It was June 30th, 2003.
Okay. Well,
So hold
we
on.
got
That add up to 20 something years, right? Yeah. Uh
yeah. Hold on.
huh.
Let's do the math. Got to carry the one
Yeah.
minus the two. The,
Yeah.
yeah.
It'd be like
Um,
that meme on the thing, but like if Danny had 5 apples and he
right.
took 4 apples away.
Yeah, that's we will be married 21 years in May.
Wow, man. Look at that, man.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I told you it's a parallel. 21 years in May coming. And so next month we will be legal in this marriage.
You know, it's funny, like Lawanda and I'm not sure if you know, you probably do, but Lawanda and we met on blackplanet.com.
Blackplanet.com.
Yeah,
I
we met on
remember
Black
Black
Planet.
Planet.
My name was Too Smooth for You. And my name was Too Smooth for You 2003. And her name was Good Girl to Know. And I was like, well, I want a good girl to know.
Look at that on Black Planet. Shout out to Black Planet, the people who still on Black Planet, and all the relationships and marriages and babies that came out of Black Planet.
Oh my
Oh, that
goodness.
is funny. That is so surprisingly we we didn't meet on Black Planet, but we met over the phone.
Oh,
Like, I
okay.
was
All
at
right.
work working at Singular Wireless, and she called in to cancel her service and had a conversation. And next thing you know, we was married. Uh, I was living in Fayetteville, and she was in Charlotte.
Oh
And
wow.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Like these parallels. It's amazing what you learn when you really start talking about your story, and that's the thing. Like with what I'm trying to do, I want people to be able to see, like, they see the books, they see the podcast, they see whatever else that you got your hands into that's going on around you and things like that. But there is a story connected to that path, to that
Hmm.
journey. And the goal is to connect people to that, because there's somebody that's going to be listening to this podcast that's going to be sitting saying, I mean, he was just like me.
Hmm.
Like I'm not the only one out here kind of spitting till I find out, throwing darts, and wherever it lands, kind of like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, and kind
Yeah.
of together. So being able to hear your story, being able to hear and see and share the things that you've walked through, um, you know, is the encouragement part. So what is one of the things that you would you could share about being pursuing your purpose and your destiny? What is something that, one, what led you to it, and two, how did you start to cultivate it as you got led into it?
All right. So I know that we not talking about marriage or whatever, but I wanna try to tell a little brief story about, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, man. Like, I really didn't. I just knew, all I knew was that I was making money and I was good. That's it. I was like, man, well, yeah, I guess the purpose is in that. But when I got married, my wife had dreams, she had goals, she knew what she wanted to do, all the other kind of stuff. And through supporting her in the vision and stuff like that she believed that God had called her to do, that's when I actually found what God had called me to do through giving her 100% of me. Um, and that's how I found what I was supposed to do. Now, obviously, like, I still go through times where I used to go through times where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing that when I see other people doing it.
Uh-huh.
Or I say, man, well, this is fun. Let me do this. And it's all good, but it doesn't have any long lasting effects because it's stuff that's fun and that I can do, but it's not what God has called me to do. And I think that's what the difference is what I'm getting at. So I think that um, purpose and really just trying to find what it is really like, I think we could start, the core of it is starting at, like, okay, well, what do I really enjoy doing?
Uh-huh.
What do I really like doing? What's fun? You know what I'm saying? What if I can't, as the old saying goes, what can I do if I wasn't making any money that I can do? You know what I'm saying? But my story is a little different. That, I was fortunate to be able to kind of find that out through my marriage. But I do believe that, and I think Rick Warren has the Purpose Driven Life. I think it was that book.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? And I've read that too, and it kind of helps you kind of get through, like, the processes of, okay, hey, this is the different things that you can do to kind of even find it. But I think the most important thing, number one, is just saying, hey, look, I've been called to do something. You know what I'm saying? And what is that thing? And really kind of learning yourself and kind of figuring that out. Let me see if I answered your question, because I'll be rambling.
Nah, you. So here's the thing you did. Um, Now, in answering, in doing that, how many children do you have?
3.
Three. And how important do you think you being the example for them is to their walk and to their journey?
I would say the important thing is that, so when I see, like, different things, like from my kids or whatever, I really believe that how I treat their mom, how I treat others, can at least give them the moral background. But then, as far as, like, the money aspect, I mean, just basic stuff like, hey, this is how you do this and how you do that. But I do believe it's pretty important. I think it's good for a foundation. But I think that when they get out and start learning on their own, the
Mhm.
hope is that they use the foundation that maybe they got from Malawanda and I, and use it to further their careers or their purpose or anything like that. Because I know that I've made some mistakes in regards to parenting. And so I hope that they say, okay, well, hey, maybe this is some mistakes that I seen my dad do that I don't want to do. But at least I gave them some more good than bad. So I would say that it's important, but then it's important as a foundational principle to say, hey, at least I got something I can take and use something as a foundation while I'm figuring my own way out.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I have an 18-year-old, and I try to be the example all the way across the board in everything that I try to share with him.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm talking about being out in the community, then I need to be out in the community. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like, if I'm talking about impacting and make a difference, I need him to see me impact and make a difference. When he was younger, I used to be intentional about him seeing me reading and praying. I
Yeah.
always wanted to I always wanted to have that etched in his brain that I used to see my dad read and pray all the time.
Yeah.
you know, and so um just being that example, because I know there's a lot of kids out here who don't have that example.
Right.
And if you are, if your children, if your house is the house, you know your children's friends, and so you become the example for them as well.
Hmm. Right.
So
I agree.
so so my son's in college, and so he have his college homeboys. When they come down, they'll be here just like,
Yeah.
okay. But what it is, it's an opportunity for me to impart and share and be an example to those who don't have a father, to those who parents aren't married, for those who you know what I'm saying, like, just to be an example for them, because it's a bigger picture. It's like your book is talking about being a hero and
Hmm.
not being able to be motivated, or needing some motivation, needing somebody to encourage you, needing somebody to help push you into that. And I just want to encourage you as a father that your impact and the things that you're doing it has a bigger ripple than you could probably ever even imagine. Your children's friends probably look to come over to your house because they get the chance to hang out and know that you're going to say something positive to them because they're not getting that.
I feel you. Yeah. I recently seen my daughter. She has emojis for, I guess, as it relates to each person in the house. And she has my emoji as the laughing emoji. So apparently, I'm always cracking jokes and stuff like that, and always bringing laughter. And I think that's encouraging for me too. Is that even through the midst of, like Kevin Hart used to say back in the day or whatever, laugh at my pain. But then
Uh-huh.
on another way or whatever, where it's like, hey, I want to be able to provide at least some sort of joy when things may get tough. You know what I'm saying? Like being
Yeah.
able to provide that segue, like, oh, you may be able to go through, you may have to go through some things, you know what I'm saying, where you can't avoid it, but at least be able to hold on to something while you're going through. And then I hope that even through that they can, think of dad or whatever, like a joke that they said or whatever, to be able to bring some laughter or something in the midst of what they're going through. And again, just like you said earlier, what I'm saying, we don't just we try to live it, you know what I'm saying, because I know a lot of people, they live different from what they go to on Sunday versus what they are Monday through Saturday, and we try to live that all throughout the week. And I try to be the same person as I am home, as I am in church, as I am at work or whatever, because I, just like I said, I mean, I can barely remember your questions. There ain't no way I can remember that personality that I try to do at work versus at church. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I'm gonna be
Right.
able to remember. You know what I'm
He,
saying?
he
So
done got mixed up.
yeah.
he be like, yeah, yeah. It's easier just to be who I am, you know. So, uh, yeah, that one of the things, like, again, we have a lot in common. I deal with grief and pain and things like that. I have to be able to find the positive in everything.
Mm-hmm.
It just like I told you, my middle sister just passed in November. I had to find, I had to pull some positive out of that. My dad passed when I was 19. I had to pull some positive out of that. My mom passed when I was 30, 29 or 30. I had to
Mm.
pull positive out of that. You know what I'm saying? So that's just how God wired me, is to be able to see the glass half full, even if it's empty. I
Mm.
can always connect to something positive, regardless of what the situation is. My brain won't let me see anything different, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're a best-selling author. How did this book come about?
So it was during COVID. So we're talking about COVID. What was that? 2020. It seemed like a
2020.
long time ago. And there was during a time where we were going through police brutality amongst our brethren, our black folks. And
Uh-huh.
at that time, I was going through a lot of emotions. Just like I said, I've been in the military. I got PTSD. You know, it's a lot of different things. Anxiety. I got a lot of different things that I handle or that I deal with, and I wanted to. I was going through a range of emotions. I was tired. I was sick and tired. I was frustrated. I was mad. I was angry. I was going through all of that at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Because as I seen other black men succumb to these different things that were all on TV, I pictured myself being that dude. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, you know, how can I tangibly get through this? So a lot of things that a lot of people do is they just go and social media dump and, you know, just complain through social media and voice their concerns and all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, us being military guys or whatever, it was in me that I wanted to do something tangible. I wanted to do something that mattered, that was long lasting. And then if I wanted to complain, I was like, okay, well, at least I had a leg to stand on. That was my perspective about it. I'm like, well, if I'm going to complain, I'm going to be like, well, look, well, at least I did something about it as I was complaining. You know what I'm saying? And so my wife or whatever, she was editing books and doing different things with the nonprofit that we did. And I was like, well, babe, I should just, you know, write a book. It became easy because she was helping young children write books or whatever. So I was like, well, babe, I should write a book. And that's when Heroes became about. I think I wrote that thing in about 2 weeks. It didn't take me long at all. I mean, it was already in my heart. I already knew what I wanted to write. And I wanted to make it. I know that I don't even really like to read that much. So I wanted to make it something that I would want to read. And so that's what I did. I wrote it down. I just threw it all up on paper. And then my wife went back and kind of edited and formatted it. And, you know, I kind of provide questions. And really the questions is about to kind of have you think about what the chapter talked about and do that. So that's really kind of where it came about.
So this book right here is his book, Heroes. And it's definitely a it's not long because I used to be an avid reader, and now I look at reading as does it fit into my schedule?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
is it join on an audio book or something? But this book, y'all need to actually go and support him and go pick up his book. And this is where you can get his book from, right here on Amazon. You can get his book on Amazon. Go in there, type his name in, go get it, go support him, get this book, get it for your young people, get it and read it and do the questions because it's going to cause you to have some introspective of who you are and your role that you play in the community. So it is a good book. It's a quick read. It's 29 pages. You can read this in your in a day, in an hour, if you're an avid reader of somebody who reads. So definitely go pick this up and support him because it is actually a great read. It's a great book, and that's just one of many that books that he's probably producing. He probably got another one on tap. It's in there somewhere.
Somewhere in here. I don't know where it's at,
Somewhere.
but it's coming.
I got about two of them in me that I just got to go ahead and just get written and get them done and get it out the way. So you wrote the book, and what was the response after you got the book? What was like when you started to see people buy your book and people start to talk to you about the book? What was your response to that?
So their response or my response to them?
Your response to them getting your like what was their response to like, hey, he wrote a book, and
Right.
then what was your response to them after they was like, hey man, this book changed my life?
So yeah. So speaking of that, so their response was like after the initial like, hey, my boy wrote a book or whatever, it was more like, hey man, like this is some really good nuggets. Like this chapter was really good. Or, you know, this chapter really kind of hit me hard. And that's really what it was. I really wanted to let like my people know, like, hey man, I see what you're going through. This is how I was going through it. And this my perspective. but we all have perspective. So I think that was the initial from them, but then from me to be able to see that what I actually was thinking was so impactful, that it made such a difference. It really kind of just kind of just brought some perspective, I guess. It really said like, man, this is really, I'm really glad that I wrote this. Because sometimes, a lot of people, they'll have books in their heart or whatever, just like you talked about before, man. Look, I got two, but I ain't wrote it yet. And it's like, man, well, somebody's waiting, somebody out there waiting for that. You know what I'm saying? And so now I was like, man, I was really glad that I said, okay, I pressed publish. You know what I'm saying? Because it's self-published. So I was like, man, I'm glad that we went through this, that I put the time in, that I actually did it. And now, boom, we can see how it's changed somebody's life. And then on top of that, my son looking at it and he sees it like, man, dad, he really got something out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then he sees how people respond to it. I say, I don't know because he doesn't say it, but I can just kind of picture like, and I can see in his face, like, man, dad, I got a dad that, that's making
He's
an
proud.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's up. That's and that's all we can do as fathers is try to be that example, man. That somebody that when your kids can look and be like, I'm proud of my dad. I'm proud. I'm proud of him. And as your so how old is your oldest son? How old is your oldest child?
So my oldest child, she is 19.
Okay. So she's 19. And so she's out doing 19-year-old stuff, right? My son is 18. So when she comes and confides in you or some stuff that she didn't want to listen to when she was 13 or 14 or 10, and then she comes back and say, Dad, you was right. That that does something, when they hit that, when they come into their own insight and wisdom and revelation of who we are to them, it means something. And when they express that, it's like an open wallet. Like if my son come down, he's like, Dad, like, hey, I really appreciate you and I love you, and I'm like, okay, what you want? Let's go buy it right now,
Yeah. Right.
let's go get it. So it's really good, man, to be able to have like, I'm really inspired by your walk, by your journey, by the things that you put in the earth. You got another project that you're working on that you just launched. Let's talk about it. What is it?
So we're talking about the YKR podcast, the Young Kings Rising podcast.
Uh-huh.
And I think I wanted to find, initially it was because I wanted to start a podcast to try to really promote the book and market the book more. Because I wasn't really finding that I was doing really good in other avenues. And so, how I'll be, we go through social media and people say, man, podcast, do a podcast. And I'm like, man, well, okay, let me try it. I love to talk. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing. That's one thing down. After that, it's just getting all the stuff that you need. And I think that's now it has become like something that me and Junior can do something together. And it's really became not just a project to where I can try to sell more books, but then it can be a project where now me and my son are spending quality time together. Now we are, hashing out what the next episode going to be like, or what we're going to be talking about, or him telling his friends, go join our YouTube and stuff like that. Something that he can be excited about that him and his dad is doing. And I think that's kind of what it's become. And I didn't really think that it would be that way, but I'm proud it did. And I think that's kind of what I'm really excited about. So, yeah, the YKR podcast. And again, just like the book, the episodes are going to be short, 10 to 12 minutes max.
Uh-huh.
Something that, the youth can kind of regurgitate, get up and, get something real quick on a lunch break if they needed to, and then move on to something that's made like a Joe Rogan that's 5 hours long or something, just something like that. But I wanted ours to be a little shorter, you know what I'm saying? Something that they can kind of get and get in and get out.
Get in, get out. So Young Kings Rising podcast. Y'all need to check it out. So here y'all go right here. Go and follow them on their social media. This is their Instagram page right here, Young Kings Rising. Go check it out. they got some episodes, and I'm really looking forward to what they're doing because it's a father-son bond, and it's just good to see them interact on TV, on TV or on their podcast. It's really inspiring and encouraging to see that. Go follow them on their that is
YouTube.
YouTube. Yeah, go follow their YouTube. So go subscribe to their channel. Hit follow, like, subscribe, so you can get the notifications when they're dropping new material. Go and pull them up. Young Kings Rising is across the board. Follow their Facebook page. Do all that. This this is one of the things that I want. I want. I want y'all to the people that's going to hear this. I want y'all to kind of see like he is really instilling some principles in his son that his son may not really fully understand yet, but he's giving him a skill set and a trait. These are things that now in the world that you need. You know, college is not for everybody. And so to be able to have a skill, a trait, or even if you go to college, to be able to say, yeah, I know production. Yeah, so now he's able to go into somebody's church or be on campus at somebody's college and creating a revenue stream for himself. He has the skill sets to be able to edit, produce, and do all these things. Now, that's generational transfer right there. Normally in our community, we don't transfer the skill sets that came with the family. So my family was construction. We had my grandfather owned a construction company. Those skills didn't get transferred or handed down to me because of how he functioned in business. But if he was smart, he would have equipped all his grandkids with the skill set that we could run the business. And that's what Darren's doing with him and his son is equipping him with the skill set to know how to fish. Yeah, it's easy for me to supply the fish, but one day I might not be able to fish. And he needs to know how to fish. And so for him to be able to have this with his son and put these principles in place, y'all, it's a great thing, and y'all should just support it because because it's a good thing. And I like what he's doing. I like how he's going about it. I like his approach. Y'all go follow them on all their social media. Go support them. Go buy his book. If he pulls up in your area with anything that he's doing, y'all need to support him. That's what y'all need to do for real.
Come on.
So because he's doing some big things. I got one last question for you.
Okay.
Now this is my question, and I really took some time to just think about this question.
Well, let me make sure I write this thing down so I won't forget.
Here's the question.
Okay.
What is something that you didn't pay attention to early on and you had to learn the hard way?
Okay. Let me the hard way. The hard way, the hard way. So what's one thing that I didn't pay attention to? I would say a lot of the things that I did while growing up was like trial and error, right? Um, and I think your intuition is something I think that if I were to listen to, would have saved me a lot of stress and heartache. So I'll give you a quick story. So Luanda and I, we were about to purchase or move into another building for our daycare, and she didn't tell me anything about it until it was time to show up and sign the papers. And so I went there, and I'm looking over the papers. They giving me the whole deal and everything like that. And they told the price and how long the term was. It was about 10-year long term. And I was like, I was like, nah, this just don't sound right. Like, I don't think we should do this. The math just ain't mathing, all the other kind of stuff. We probably shouldn't do this. Let's just hold off. So my wife was like, well, what you gonna do then? If we ain't gonna do this, then we gonna do something else. And then I was like, well, I don't know what else to do. I just know that we shouldn't do this. And as any, new husband, well, I don't say all new husbands do that, just want the best for their want what their wife want, all the other kind of stuff. I folded. You know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, well, let's just do it. If you think that we can do it, then fine, let's do it. And that started the journey on a whole, I don't want to say downward spiral, but we were very impacted by that decision, where in 1 week's time and at one period in time we were um closing all our buildings down. We was behind on our mortgage 6 months. We were eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches, oodles and noodles, because we couldn't afford anything but to pay our staff, all the other kind of stuff. And so we were at a point where we were broke, busted, and disgusted, as they like to say. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't know where we was going. It was affecting our marriage. We were getting mad at each other all the time. You know what I'm saying? Everything was crazy. And I think that the intuition from when I said, hey man, I don't think we should be doing this, and really like stood on my morals. And I think that's what's important is if you were really believing in something, stick to it. You know what I'm saying? And now later on, I've grown to be like, look, I can't fold, not just with the situation with my wife, but in all areas. It's like, if you were really believe in something, you got to, what they say, 10 toes down,
10
stand
toes
on
down.
business. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You got to stand on business or whatever, because most times if you really believe in something, your intuition in your belly, or as I like to call it, the Holy Spirit says, hey, look, this is what you need to, this is the right thing to do, even if it doesn't make sense, or even if the crowd isn't following you. Like, hey, stick to what your gut is really telling you. And that's one thing that I wish we would have done now. Now, if I would have did that, then we wouldn't have went through that experience, and this wouldn't be a testimony now. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, it works out both ways. So I think that ultimately, would I have liked to make a better decision during that time? Yes. But I know that experience has made us stronger now. But at the same time, it was an experience that I wouldn't want to go through again, because it was a horrible, it was a bad experience. I don't want to say horrible, but it was a bad experience for us.
And if it was horrible, it could have been horrible, because I know what it's like to ignore that feeling and find yourself scraping,
Mm-hmm.
you know, doing whatever you got to do, being in that space where you said, y'all were eating peanut butter jelly and oodles and noodles. And every time you make that sandwich or eat those noodles, you looking at her saying, I knew I should have just said no. I knew I should have just said no.
Yeah, I'm saying that in my mind because I don't want
Oh
to
yeah,
say it
yeah,
out
yeah.
loud.
As you chewing in your mind, it's all kind of crazy stuff popping off in your mind. Of course, you're not saying it.
Right.
We fight words, but yeah, that it. But that's a good point, and I think that if knowing how to listen to and be guided by the spirit at a young age, you might not know it's the spirit. You might say it's intuition, but if you're feeling like it's not right, then don't do it. If you're feeling like it is right, and within something inside of you, then do it. Like you have to be able to follow those things. And I think one of the things that I'm even trying to teach my son now is to pay attention to that.
Mm,
When something, when you know that it, like, something doesn't feel right, pay attention to it. When you
mm-hmm.
know something that does feel right, and you have opportunity to come up and things are presented, and you like, yeah, this is, this, I feel this. Be able to move in that.
Right.
Be able to be settled in that without second guessing or questioning or anything like that. Why? Because God is the author and the finisher. So if He's leading or if He's redirecting, it has to be what He said is, and we have to be okay with that being what it is. Yeah. Yeah. You got anything else you want to say to the people?
Look, can I scale back a little bit?
Go ahead.
I want to talk about, right, how Lawanda and I, now I know we talked about we met on Black Planet, but we got married in January. I mean, we met in January, engaged in April, married in June, and bought our first house that December, and then had Jasmine that next November.
I get it. We met in September, got engaged in November, got married in May.
See, that's what I'm saying. See, I knew we had. See, I had to make sure that aligned up too.
Yeah. Oh, hey. At that point, we were in a good place and hearing from God, both of us. So
Yeah.
it just happened to work out. And
Hey,
21 years later.
My wife said, "Hey, you heard from God, right? What did he tell you to do?"
Right. Right. So
yeah, but one thing I want to tell the people out there, man, is get you around some good people, man. Like, get you around some good people and really have fun and really stay motivated and encouraged with what you believe you have in you. I think that's just most important. I mean, we got too many liars out here to be trying to avoid the truth. You know what I'm saying? And I think that
right.
if we can kind of just stick to our guns and not really being influenced by what other people are saying, I think that it will be less chaos around us. Like we'll start, people have got to start putting people around us, man, that really matter, that really going to strengthen and encourage, kind of like you are with me, man. Is just really like being a positive voice in the room or whatever that can really guide you and move you and support you going in the right direction.
Well, y'all heard it here first from a man, Darren Council. Go check his book out. Go follow him on his social media at Young Kings Rising. And if he pull up in your area with anything that's popping off, support him. Hey, it's been your boy Seymour Reese Ball, and I love you like a play cousin, and I'm out. Peace.